Okay, are we good so far? Everybody still got energy? Haven't fried your brains yet? We're good? Okay. I'm gonna go back up to, okay, here's a large mixer. This is certainly not the most complicated mixer in the world, but it does give you a sense of what's out there. This mixer has 16 channels. Um, Although some of them you can see 9, 10, some of them are actually paired. And so I can't put, whatever, I don't want to get too much into detail, but channels 9 and 10 are together. We're going to look at one channel. As I said, all channels are exactly the same. So it begins way up here, and I assume you can see my cursor. This is where I connect my um, XLR cable, where I connect my microphone. If I go 2 channels over, you'll see that it actually has those 3 pins. And underneath it has the line socket we were talking about. If I go back 2 to the left, you'll see that they were actually merged. I have a large 1/4" socket, and at the same time I have these 3 little holes on its edges. That means that I can connect either a microphone or a line into this particular socket. Sometimes when that happens, you have to actually tell the mixer what you connected. Some mixers will feel the 3 pins and they'll know, oh, that's a microphone. Others will feel those 3 pins and they're like, what? So you have to tell the mixer what you're connecting. For that, there's a button. This button says high Z. Okay, I mean, generally speaking, sometimes there's a button, sometimes there's not. It is important to tell the mixer what you're connecting. If you happen to be working with that kind of mixer that needs to know whether you connected a mic or a line, that's usually what it'll say. It'll say mic, line. You have to say, did I connect a microphone or did I connect a line, which is a 1/4". Insert, we are more or less going to skip. Insert allows me to plug in other devices. We're not going to go there. It's really a world that is rare in simple settings. Okay, low cut. Low cut, also known as high pass, that is a very, very, very useful button that we are totally going to talk about. And we're going to go back to our frequencies. If I am playing a violin and the lowest note on the violin is 440, and there's a lot of noise underneath that, I can cut the low frequencies and take them completely out, and my violin will still sound like a violin. I will not hurt the sound of the violin, but I will cut away a bunch of noise. That's called low cut. With one push of a button, and you notice we didn't have that on the simple mixer, but a fancier mixer, and this includes a lot of simpler mixers will have a low cut. You hit that button and you're cleaning away a lot of low frequencies where a lot of the noise tends to be. Now you might even want to write this down, but very few instruments use those low frequencies. A bass, an upright bass, a bass guitar, and an accordion player's left hand, which is playing the bass. A bass needs low frequencies. A piano's left hand needs low frequencies. A drum, a bass drum, not cymbals, but a bass drum needs low frequencies. That's most of it. Outside of those instruments, most instruments don't use low frequencies. That means that in most cases, you can hit this button and you can hit it on every single channel except the bass and the drums, and you will have less noise in your mix.
What button are you pointing to?
I'm pointing to the low cut. It's over here. It's the second gray button down. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna start from the top. I have the microphone connection. I have a little gray button that says high Z, which is to tell the mixer whether I'm connecting an instrument in this case. Most of them won't say high Z. Most of them will say mic line. That makes it much simpler. In any case, um, high Z, I'm afraid to go into details, but high Z sometimes means something else. But anyway, for now, mic line. Below that, I have the insert socket, and below that, I have low cut. It says 100 hertz. 100 hertz is 100 waves per minute. That's my frequency. I'm cutting 100. Everything that's 100 and down is getting sliced out completely. It's zero, nothing, once I hit this button. If I have a singer, especially a woman, but also a man is not going to sing. Does a man hit? I think a man starts around 120, 100. I'll have
What
to
about
sit
a
there and
clarinet?
calculate it. I'll have to sit there and calculate it, but a woman certainly doesn't sing this low. Um,
What
a
about the
I
low notes on a clarinet?
no, no, they don't go this low. Um, you can look it up. You can look up the frequencies. But we're talking about very low frequencies. Uh, let's see. No, they don't go this low. You know what? I don't have my clarinet. I should pull it out. But let's pull out our let's pull out our tuner and see. I'm gonna play the lowest note on a flute, and we'll see how low a flute goes. The flute goes to middle C. And middle C, I don't know exactly where that is, but it should be like 300, something like that.
156.
That's my guess. Let's see what a middle C gives me. The A we were playing was 440. I'm going to go down to middle C. I can't see it, but let's see. 260. So middle C is 260. That's the lowest note on a flute. My flute is fancy. It can go one note lower. 247. Okay, I'm not worried about 100. A clarinet will go a little less than an octave below that. So half of that, 247, half of that, 123. That's still above 100. That's the lowest note on a clarinet. Most mixers don't cut so much. Most mixers are 80 and down, 60 even and down. Or most mixers are 80 and down. Noise piles up. That's the funny thing about noise. If all your channels are picking up noise, then together you're going to have a lot of noise. If you hit low cut on 9 out of your 10 channels, your mix is going to be much cleaner. If you're not sure whether to hit it or not, open your ears, go on, off, and see if you hear a difference. If you don't hear a difference, keep things simple. Assume that it doesn't matter. If you hear a difference, then it matters. Okay? Sure, someone who's got really sharp hearing might walk into the room and say that they hear the difference. But again, if you don't hear the difference, then probably most people don't either. Okay, so if you're looking for a quick fix, just turn it on and off and listen.
Asaf,
Yes.
a quick question about what tuner you're using on the iPad.
It's called Pano, P-A-N-O, Pano Tuner. I like it a lot. I've compared it to good physical tuners that I've used growing up, and it works really well. That was 10 seconds from our sponsor. Okay, so going back to, I think I'm sharing the screen again, and we're looking at our big mixer. So we talked about connections, we talked about low cut, and then we got gain. Okay, gain, as I said, is our first volume switch, which we use to get a healthy signal. Don't worry about turning the gain way up if you have to. You will see. Okay, no, let's keep it simple. Use gain as needed. You want your meter up on the right side. I hope you can see my mouse, but over on the right here, I see those lights, the same ones that I saw here when I tap my microphone. On the right side of the mixer, I'm going to see those lights. So if you look at my PowerPoint show, on the right side, I've got these meters, and you see that there's a green zone, a yellow zone, and a red zone. Yellow is fine. Red is it says OL next to it because it's overload. That's going to start causing noise. So I want a healthy signal right around the cusp between green and yellow is a good place to shoot for. Try not to let it go too close to the red. Okay, below that gain knob, I see a, and by the way, you can always turn the volume, the last volume, you can always turn it down or even mute the channel. The gain can be at 100%. If you mute the channel, no one will hear. So you don't have to be afraid of high gain. Again, I'm generally speaking. If you find that all of your gains are very high and you're hearing a lot of noise, maybe you're using too much gain, but I don't want to get into too much detail. Okay. Compressor. This is kind of a, do we have time for this? It's one, okay, I think we do. Compressors are a bit of a can of worms. Explaining compressors is going to take a little while. I think it's worth it as long as everybody's got the energy for that. Are we good? Okay. You could this could be an intermission for anyone who's not interested in knowing what compressors are. I wouldn't have spoken about compressors except that they are becoming more common. And because they're becoming more common, it's worth knowing what they are. I'm not going to go into the details of what a compressor is, but I'm going to go into the nutshell. So I'm going to pull up a little graph. On this graph, assuming that you can see it, I've got my volume. Volume, I just arbitrarily gave it numbers. Volume can go from 1 to 9. If it's too high, we hit feedback. And I have a drummer. Okay, I have a drummer who's very, very right-handed. Every time he hits the drum with his right hand, we have a volume 2. Every time he hits the drum with his right hand, it's so strong that it goes up to volume 8. And then another hit with his left, another hit with his right, another hit with his left, another hit with his right, okay, and so on. If this is the way my drummer plays, aside from not sounding so great, I have a huge problem because I can't hear his right hand. Whereas his left hand, oh sorry, I can't hear his left hand, whereas his right hand is just too loud. If I bring up the volume, I inevitably bring up all the volume. So great, now I'm going to hear his left hand because his left hand is finally up to 7, but now his right hand is so loud that I've got feedback. Okay? That's my problem. That's what compressors are here to fix, is these situations where we have someone who is sometimes quiet and sometimes loud. Now let's be fair, everyone is sometimes loud and sometimes quiet. Not only that, but musicians need to be sometimes loud and sometimes quiet. We want some nuance in our voice. We don't want to sound like robots all the time where everything's the same volume. We want nuance. But if there's too much nuance, then it doesn't work. It's impossible to amplify because I can't amplify only his left hand. So here's what I want to achieve. I want to take that drummer's left hand and amplify it without amplifying his right hand. Okay, I'm going to say that again because it's important to remember that that's what we're shooting for. Everything I'm going to say about compressors is going to come back to that. I want to amplify the quiet stuff without amplifying the loud stuff. Okay? Now, the simple way to do that is if I just sit next to my mixer, every time I see that he's going to use his left hand, I bring it up. And every time I see that he's going to use his right hand, I bring it down. It's called riding the faders. I'm sitting here and doing this, up, down, up, down, up, down, and then, okay, that fixes my problem. I'm compensating for the drummer's changes of volume because I'm riding the faders. I'm just changing as we go. So yeah, I can do that, but it's a huge headache. And if I have 3 drummers, I don't have 3 hands. Okay, so that's, you know, that's the simple mechanical way to fix it. But if I had a machine that could do it for me, that would be great. That's where compressors come in. So what I want to achieve with my compressor is I want to reach a point where the left hand is loud. I want to reach a point where the left hand is louder and the right hand stays the same. The left hand is louder and the right hand stays the same. Left hand is louder and the right hand stays the same. Okay, that's clear? That's what we're shooting for. Okay, so here's how we're going to do it. We're going to do it in 2 stages. Remember that computers and mixers talk in numbers. They don't know what louder and softer is, but they know what 2 and 8 is. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at what's the volume here. The volume is 2. What's the volume here? The volume is 8. The volume here is 2. The volume here is 8. The volume here is 2. The volume here is 8. Now I'm speaking my mixer's language. Okay? I want them all to be 6s. Or I want to get a 6-7, 6-7 at most. I don't want 2-8, 2-8. So all I have to do is tell my mixer or my compressor, I'm going to tell my compressor, divide all these numbers by 2. If it divides all these numbers by 2, what I get is, let's see, let's make it red. Red is visible. Okay, I'm going to divide my, what happened? I'm going to divide my 2 in half. I get a 1. Ooh. When that happens. Okay, I'm going to divide my 2 in half. I get a 1. I divide my 8 in half. I get a 4. I divide my other 2 in half. I get a 1. Again, 4. And 1 and 4. Okay, I've divided everything in half. Let's go a step further. Let's divide everything in 4. You know, let's seriously compress this. So I'm changing my graph. A 1 becomes a quarter. Oh, sorry, no, 1 becomes a half. 1 becomes a half. 2 divided by 4, 8 divided by 4, 2 divided by 4. I'm just simple, changing my numbers. If this is not clear, let me know. But right now, all you need to understand is that I'm speaking the language of the mixer and dividing all the numbers by 4. Now, let's go back to human talk and draw the graph of what we just created. Instead of 2, the first number is half. Instead of, oh, let's do it in a different place. Let's do it here. Instead of 2, the first number is half. Instead of 8, the second number is 2. Half, 2. Half, 2. Okay, my drummer is now playing the red graph. If I take that red graph, okay, so the first thing I did was I take that red graph and I raise the volume on everything. Now that he's playing in a more uniform way because I divided all the numbers, now I can bring the volume back up. Now the right hand is at 8, while the left hand is right around 7. Okay? In 2 steps, I achieved what I wanted to achieve. Okay? I raised the volume on my left hand without changing the volume on my right hand. I did that by compressing the signal. Instead of it being a huge range between 2 and 8, it is compressed down to a range between a half and 2. Much smaller range, and I can raise and lower the volume as much as I want. Okay, that's what a compressor does. It does it in 2 steps, dividing and then raising the volume. Essentially, that's what a compressor does. Yes, there are many more functions to a compressor. We're just not going to go there because it's not necessary. So, any questions about what a compressor does? I'm going to sum it up and say that it compresses the signal so that lows become higher and highs become lower. It just creates more uniform playing. If I compress too much, then I get a robot. People sound like this and it doesn't sound good. There is such a thing as too much compression. But if I have someone who is playing ununiformly, or if for whatever reason I just can't hear some of their notes, I can compress them a little bit and then I will hear them more clearly. The most useful moments for a compressor are in a speech or a lecture because I just want to hear everything. And I don't care about the nuances as much. Unless we're reading poetry, I just want to hear everything. So I compress a lot and then I can hear all the speech.
So Asaf, what does this correspond to on the board?
Okay, so let's go back to the board. Some boards these days they have compressors. The simpler ones don't. The more complicated ones do. But it's a feature. It's like buying a house with an extra bedroom. Some mixers have compressors, some don't. Because it's becoming more common, I thought it was worth talking about because it's good to know what's on your board. A compressor does all of those functions in one knob. If it was a complicated compressor, I would be able to decide how much to divide by, which notes I want to affect and which notes I don't want to affect. I don't want to get into too much detail, but on a simple board, it's all one knob. What will happen if I turn this knob up, just like I could turn up any other knob, but I'm going to pretend that it's this one. If I turn up the knob, I get more and more compression, and if I turn it down, I get less and less compression. This isn't really a compression knob, I'm just showing it as an example. More compression means that I will have less and less nuance and it'll act more like a robot and it'll also be louder, and if I go back down then it's going to be quieter and I'm going to be able to hear the difference between loud and soft. More compression is going to sound like this and less compression is going to sound like this, okay? In a nutshell, it makes it louder and more uniform, okay? If you have a musician who you can sometimes hear but sometimes not, compression can come in handy. If you have a singer who you can sometimes hear and sometimes not, compression can come in handy. If you're trying to keep it simple, you keep your compression down on 0, just like it is here on this mixer, down on off, because that will usually sound the best. Compressors are not as critical as you might think. They're handy, especially if you know how to use them. But if you want to keep it simple, you can just leave it at 0. It's always good to know what off is. For EQ, you can look at this mixer on the PowerPoint. For EQ, off is pointing straight up. If I want to turn my EQ off, I point it straight up. If I want to turn my compressor off, I turn it to off, which is all the way to the left, all the way down. It's important to know what off can mean different things on a mixer. That's one of the reasons why it's worth talking about a compressor, so that you know how to turn it off. But yeah, compressors do come in handy. If you experiment with them, you may find that you like them. If you cannot understand the consonants, compressors will accentuate the consonants similarly to raising the high frequencies. Not for the same reason. You're not doing the same thing, but you're achieving more consonants by turning up the compressor. Okay, EQ. The EQ here is a little more sophisticated. It's got 4 knobs. The upper knob is high frequency, just like this one. Same thing, no difference. The lower knob, we'll skip there. The lower knob is just low frequency, just like this one, no difference. The middle frequency has 2 knobs, a blue one and a white one. The lower knob, the white one, chooses a frequency, and the upper knob decides whether to raise the volume on that frequency or lower. So I can give a particular singer more 200 hertz, more 2000 hertz, more 600 hertz. I can decide which frequency to change. That brings me closer to that idea of making a flute sound like an oboe, because I can be more precise. So it's a more sophisticated mixer in that sense. I'm not bringing up all the mid-range. I'm choosing what part of the mid-range I want to boost or cut, and then I'm bringing the volume up on just those frequencies or down. We'll get to tips on how to use that. But again, if you want the EQ off, point it straight up, and it will usually sound the best that way, unless you know exactly what to look for. Okay, auxiliary below that, that is my monitors. That's how I send these 3 green buttons. If I turn the volume up on them, just like these yellow ones on my little mixer, if I turn, sorry, I just turned my monitor up too high, I had feedback. If I turn up the volume, then I'm sending my volume to the monitor. Imagine that you're powering a switchboard. You're an operator, you've got singers, clarinetists, you got singer, clarinet, harp, bass, percussion. You want to connect them to each other. The singer wants to talk to the singer. And so, ooh, that's a huge one. If I connect them, here they are. I just connected the singer to the singer. If I want to connect the harp to the harp, I put a dot here. I connected the harp to the harp. It's kind of like connect the dots. If the clarinet wants to call the percussionist, I put a dot here. Percussionist, clarinet. Okay, it's a switchboard. Now, if I'm working on a mixer and the singer says, I want to hear myself, great. I'm going to put a dot here. The singer can hear the singer. The singer says, I don't want to hear the clarinet. Okay, so I don't need that. I do need to hear the harp. Okay, so I'm going to put a dot there. I don't need the bass, but I do need to hear the percussion. Okay, so if I do this, then the singer will hear a singer, a harpist, and a percussionist in her monitor. She will not hear the bass. She will not hear the clarinet. If the clarinetist says all he needs is percussion, that's it. The harpist says she wants to hear the singer and she wants to hear the percussion. The bassist wants to hear the percussion and the singer. The percussionist wants to hear everybody. And so I'm going to give the percussionist everything in the monitor. Okay, it's like a switchboard. If I take that over to what my mixer looks like, and it's the same mixer, it's just not color-coded, but I'm looking at the same little area of where my auxiliary sends are. This is where my monitor is. This is how I send to my monitors. I've got monitor number 1, monitor number 2, and monitor number 3. Monitor number 1 is the singer's monitor, calling it vocals, VX vocals. Monitor number 2, because I only have a total of 3, I've got 5 people on the stage. Monitor number 2 is going to go to the clarinet and the harp. Monitor number 3 is going to go to the bass and the percussion. So I've given them all names. Here I have my channels. First channel, this whole thing is the vocal channel. This whole second channel is going to be my clarinet channel. Now, what does that mean? That means that my singer goes into this microphone. My clarinet goes into this microphone. My harp goes into this microphone. That means that this whole channel is full of singer. This whole channel is full of clarinet. This whole channel is full of harp. If I want the audience to hear my singer, I bring up the volume here. If I want my singer to hear my singer, I go back to the switchboard. This is the dot I want to work on. And then I'm sending my singer into the singer monitor. I've taken the singer who comes down this line and I've sent her on the track to the singer monitor. Okay, let's see how far back I can go. Okay, if I want to send, let's say my clarinetist says I want to hear more singer. Well, okay, I need to go to the clarinet monitor because the clarinet wants to hear more singer, and then I find the singer. Here's the singer. The singer's going down the line, and I'm going to send the singer to the clarinet. Okay, just like a switchboard. It can be confusing at first, and even years down the line, it can be confusing. It might help to put a bit of masking tape next to these and just write, here's the vocal one, here's the harp one, here's the percussion one. Most sound engineers will label, they'll take some masking tape, they'll put it right down here at the bottom, and they'll actually write what each channel is. This makes life a lot easier. We can do a little pop quiz, and I can say, you know, if my percussionist says that he wants to hear the bassist, what do I do? Anybody want to jump in? Let's see if everybody kind of look at the mixer and tell me if the percussionist wants to hear the singer, where do I need to go? Does anybody want to try to tackle that one?
Sure.
Okay.
You turn up 3 in the basses, whatever they're plugged into.
Okay, so I'm going to go to monitor number 3 in bass channel. Is that the one you mean?
Yes.
Okay. So here's what will happen. What I just did, I'm going to erase the rest. What I just did was here's the bass channel. The bass comes into this channel, and I turned the bass up in the bass monitor. So now the bass is going to hear him or herself. Okay, because I turned number 3 up in the bass channel. So if I want, what was it? If I want
Turn up number 1,
turn up number 1.
vocal. Isn't that what they wanted?
Okay, yeah. So hold on a sec. I'm gonna erase this. Okay, I'm gonna turn up number 1. Let's see what happens. You mean that I need to turn in what channel am I gonna turn up number 1?
In the basses channel.
Bass channel. Okay. I'm gonna erase this, and I'm gonna turn up number 1. That means that the bass, okay, that means that I took the bass signal and I sent it to the singer's monitor. So now the singer will hear the bass.
So it's got to be the opposite. You just need to turn up the bass in the vocal or whatever channel or whatever.
Right. Okay. So I don't remember what I asked it in the beginning, but I think it was something like the bassist wants to hear the singer.
Yeah.
Okay. If the bassist wants to hear the singer, I start with the bassist's monitor. Start with the monitor. The bassist wants to hear the singer. This whole row, I'm going to erase a few things. This whole, this whole row here is the bass's monitor. Everything that I turn up here will go to the bassist's monitor because it corresponds to this. Here's the bass's monitor. So here's me turning up the singer in the bass's monitor. Here's me turning up the clarinet in the bass's monitor. Here's me turning up the bass in the bass's monitor. Sometimes they want to hear themselves. I'm going to try one more. I do think that it's a good, it's a nice little trick to try. See if you can figure out what to do, because this really causes you to think what's going on. It can get very confusing and very quickly turn in, you know. Okay, so what if the singer wants to hear the harp? What do I do?
Go to monitor 1 and increase channel 3.
Very good. Okay, that's it. I went to monitor 1, which is the singer's monitor, and I increased channel 3, which is where the harp came in. The harp came in from this microphone, because this is my harp channel. Okay?
Asaf, I want to point out that what I can see all the knobs and I can see your drawing, but the little tiny letters next to them that tell you what they are? I can't see in this.
Yeah, so let's do a couple of things. First, let's zoom in. Okay, now
Yeah, better.
I'm gonna try to erase some of the red stuff. Okay. Um, the singer wanted to hear the harp. Here are our auxiliary sources. UX auxiliary, that basically means monitor. In smaller letters, it actually says MON1, monitor 1, monitor 2, monitor 3. Okay? So I'm going there and I'm looking which one of, if the singer wants to hear something, then I need to find the singer's monitor. Singer wants to hear, I look for the singer's monitor. Here's the singer. The singer's monitor is the whole row of monitor number 1. Singer uses monitor number 1. If the singer wants more singer, that's this. If the singer wants more clarinet, that's this. If the singer wants more harp, that's the one we were talking about. Here's where I go. I'm going to turn up the harp channel in the singer's monitor, which is this row. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. The nice thing about mixers is that almost all of them are configured the same way. Notice I said almost. I'll show you a case or two where it's not, but for the most part, it always starts with the connections, gain, EQ, monitors, and then little something called effects, which we're not going to deal with. But if you want more reverb or less reverb, I'm not going to go there because I don't want to complicate. People who know how to use that can. You're taking chances if you don't know what you're doing and you mess with effects. So it's better not to mess with them. And it's also a long conversation. Panning.
Question.
What is that?
One other question about the board. You said they're almost all this laid out the same, all of the things, but do they almost all have the little writing that says Mon 1, Mon 2, or do some of them not have any writing?
Okay, so okay, generally speaking, they should all have those little letters. The annoying thing is that once in a blue moon, you find one that uses a different word. So one of them might use auxiliary, another one might use monitor. One of them might use effects. I could center the monitor using the effects knob if I know how to mess with the connections. It's essentially the same mechanical thing. So I could use the effects knob for a monitor if I want to. So there is a little bit of a, exceptions to the rule. But generally speaking, you do get those little words. You get those little words that say high, mid, and low on the EQ. It says EQ. It's supposed to say it. But again, like I said, all systems are different. If you have a system, you want to learn to use it, consult with someone for at least the first time, and then you'll learn your system, because I won't be able to tell you about all of them. Okay, going down below effects is panning. We talked about panning. Mute, very simple, is an on-off. Sometimes instead of saying mute, it says on or off or whatever. This turns the channel on or turns the channel off. It turns off the entire channel. If I mute this, the singer won't hear, there won't be any singer in the monitors, there won't be any singer anywhere. The singer's channel is off, up and down the line. Below that is my main fader. The main fader can look like our famous picture, it looks like those, these white ones, where they go up and down, really cool. Or it can look like knobs, just like it is on this mixer. They're both faders. They both achieve the same thing. Generally, we
I
just want
wanted to
them
mention
down.
something about the mute button.
Yeah.
On my monitor, I have a preset button which lets you have separate monitor and main speakers. And the mute only ends up muting the main speaker. So then you have to use the aux master to mute the monitors.
Right. So again,
I learned that the hard way.
yes. Okay. So not all mixers are the same, and that's why I again say that if you're trying to learn a new mixer, find someone who knows mixers to show you. Once you know how to use your mixer, you should be able to run with that. Okay, there are buttons down here next to the fader. One of them says 1, 2, 3, 4, LR, and FPL. I'm not going to go there. I hate to say it. I'm not going to go there because that is specific to mixers, and some mixers have it and some mixers don't. And if yours has it, you'll want to know what that does. And if yours doesn't, then we'll be wasting a lot of time. So I'm not even going to talk about that. I will say maybe one thing. if there's an LR1, you want that to be pressed because that will send your channel to the left and right speakers. If it's not pressed, then the channel isn't going anywhere. It's stuck where it is. You have to actually send it to the speakers. For that, you push the LR button. That's as far as I'm going to go. You can send it to other places, not just LR. But again, if you're trying to figure out how to use a mixer, someone should show you the first time. Okay, I am going to skip over to the right to the box on the lower right-hand corner where it says main. That's my main volume. Once I raise the level, raise the volume on my singer, I raise the volume on my clarinet, I raise the volume on my harp, I raise my volume on my bass, and you notice that I wrote their names down here. I raise the volume on each one of them individually, and then all of them work as a group. So let's say that my singer is this high, my clarinet, oh, it works with fingers. My singer is this loud, my clarinet is this loud, my harp is this loud, my bass is this loud, and my percussion is this loud. Now I can raise all of them together, and they will keep the same proportion between them because each channel has volume, and I have one main volume for the entire group. So if I decided that my singer is going to be the loudest one, I can raise everybody and my singer will stay the loudest one. Okay, I'm not losing my proportions. That's the idea behind having one volume for every channel in addition to a main volume. I decide how I want to balance out my instruments, which one's louder, which one's middle, which one's soft, which one's almost nothing. And then I raise my whole band louder and softer. Okay, I'm not going to go any further than that because I don't want to open up cans of worms. That's the gist. I'm going to show you a few. We talked about monitors. I'm going to show you a few different mixers. Here's essentially the same mixer we just talked about, but this mixer has a different kind of EQ. In the red box, you see what's called a graphic EQ. These are not knobs. These are little, whatever, hand sliders. I think the name is sliders that go up and down. The first slider raises the volume or lowers the volume of the lowest frequency, right around, I don't know, maybe 60 hertz. The second one is going to be 100 hertz. The next one is going to be 200 hertz, 500 hertz, 1000 hertz, whatever. I can just lower and bring the volume up and down on every little category or every little range of frequency. So it's called a graphic EQ. Usually graphic EQs apply to the main volume. So they will actually raise and lower frequencies on everything as a group. They basically affect the speakers. They can also be used to affect the monitors. But that's what graphic EQ does. Is graphic EQ clear? Because I kind of defined it rather quickly, but is everybody okay with what graphic EQ does? Okay. Moving on to other kinds of, okay, here's another mixer, essentially the same idea. It starts with connections. We have a line in, we have an insert, woo! And then in the red box, here's one of our differences. You were asking about the words that are written next to it. This one doesn't have the word low cut. It just has a picture. And the picture, you can see theoretically it's a drawing of all the frequencies with the frequencies on the left have dropped. This is a low cut button. I know that it's a low cut button because it's where the low cut button should be, and it has a picture showing me those frequencies, and I see that the low ones have dropped. So that's my low cut button. The one next to it of an electric guitar, that's my button that tells the mixer that I've connected a guitar. So just different kinds of mixers. The auxiliary, it doesn't say monitor, it says auxiliary, and for whatever reason, they put it up before the EQ. That is super rare. Super, super rare. I'm just showing you that they can move. It's rare. You usually don't have to deal with that kind of headache. The volume here is a knob as opposed to a fader. Same idea. Okay, here's another one with a connection at the top. And instead of low cut, it says HPF. I hope you can see the HPF. HPF stands for high pass filter. If you think about it, when I bring down the low frequencies, either I am erasing the low ones or I'm allowing the high ones to pass. The high ones pass. High pass or low cut is the same thing. I'm basically either turning this off or I'm turning this on, it creates a very annoying situation where the exact same button can have two common names, either low cut or high pass. High pass filter or low cut, they are the same thing. Okay, so it's good to know that they can have two names. Okay, pad. Pad is basically the same as a mic line button. I said that you can choose, are you connecting a guitar or a microphone? Pad is the same thing. If you're connecting a microphone, you need volume. So you keep the pad button off. If you are connecting an instrument, you hit that pad button, otherwise the instrument will be too loud. It's similar to a guitar or microphone button. Sometimes you want to hit that button just as a nice, convenient way of lowering the volume way down. But anyway, that's what the pad button does. Nothing else of interest here. We have a compressor on this mixer. You can see some of them have compressors. You can see the phantom power here is on the whole mixer. You pick up phantom power or you turn it off. If I go to more sophisticated mixers like this one, I'm guessing, no, the phantom power is on the right side. It's for the whole mixer. Some mixers do have it per channel. Stop me if I'm going too fast. Okay, I don't think there's anything else that's critical to talk about. So we saw several different mixers. We get a sense of what they look like.
So how about just a brief, you haven't talked about digital mixers versus analog mixers.
Right, so analog versus digital. The world has long been using digital because we took a sound wave and we turned it into electricity. If I go one step further and turn it into digital ones and zeros, I can mess with it even more. There's a lot of stuff that I can do very conveniently with it once it's in ones and zeros. Bottom line advantages of having a digital mixer. Let me see if I can turn on a digital mixer simulator that I have here. A digital mixer might look something like this. A lot of times we power it right from our iPad. They also have a screen on them, and so the mixer itself will have this little digital screen. Sometimes it's a touch screen, sometimes it's a screen and I will have knobs next to the screen that will allow me to change. So I'll turn it and you'll actually see the fader go up and down. The fact that I can power it from my iPad is one of the biggest advantages, because we were talking about what happens when you're stuck standing next to the mixer. You don't know what everything sounds like. If it's on my iPad, I can take my iPad and walk to the other side of the room and just bring things up right in the middle of the show. I want more singer, I want more harp, I want more bass, and I'm standing right where the audience is standing. And if I want to know what it sounds like next to the bathroom, I can go next to the bathroom and change the volume. I can go anywhere I want with my mixer because it's on my iPad. This thing communicates with the physical mixer using Wi-Fi. The physical mixer will actually have its own Wi-Fi network, and I will go anywhere I want and just make changes. It's an amazing advantage. One of my personal favorite advantages of having a digital mixer. I can step onto the stage and see what the musicians hear. If a musician tells me I can't hear myself, well, I'm going to step on the stage with my mixer. I'm going to go to the screen that says monitor sends, and I'm going to say, oh, well, okay, the singer, we need a little more singer because the singer really can't hear herself, or whatever, stuff like that. I can stand next to the musicians and see what the problem is. So that's the first huge advantage of a digital mixer. Other advantages of a digital mixer include the number of effects I can put, because if you're working on a digital mixer, I've got a compressor on every single channel. I don't have to go anywhere. What is it? Here, I just go to my compressor screen. Every channel has a compressor automatically. Every channel has its own sophisticated EQ where I can bring up certain frequencies and bring down others. I can work like a surgeon with a digital mixer. I just have so many more possibilities, and those possibilities are per channel. I can turn the phantom is per channel. Here's phantom on, and here's phantom off. I can choose, let's say I want to go to channel 1, turn on the phantom, turn up my gain, Go to the compressor, turn on the compressor, decide exactly how much it's going to compress, more compression, less compression. I can do so much with a digital mixer. Digital mixers tend to bring more options and features into a compact package. So one of them is effects. I have more effects in a small mixer. I also often have more connections. A digital mixer will often be able to have more monitors, not just one or two or three. Sometimes they can have 8. But that does depend on which mixer you use.
Relative cost?
Okay, relative cost depends on which one you buy. And I will be fair and say that I have not checked the price of a digital mixer in years. The relative cost is higher. For sure higher. It used to be much higher. It has come down since then, but you would have to just look it up. The company most famous for creating decent things that cost less is a company called Behringer. They actually, right around the time that they created their digital mixers, when digital mixers were first becoming a thing, they merged with a company called Midas. Midas creates good amplifiers. And so once Behringer and Midas started working together, suddenly Behringer mixers became better. That means that a Behringer digital mixer is pretty good. And you will find them even in professional venues. They're very good. They are engineered to look as much as possible like a physical mixer, so they're easy to use. So highly recommended. My favorite is Allen and Heath. This is another conversation of different brands and stuff like that. But that's like the general cost thing. There's a huge world of mixers out there.
Asaf, you and I have talked about the fact, I mean, I quit using mixers because I got burned by them so many times. You know, it works today, it doesn't work tomorrow, it works again the next day. Happens with microphones, happens with mixers.
Yeah.
And do you find any things in terms of that reliability different in the digital space as opposed to the analog space? Because mine's really only been analog. And because you find something that worked today doesn't work tomorrow, that's not uncommon.
It's not, well, it's not as common as you think, but here's the thing. Most of the problems you have with a digital mixer are going to be user problems. They're going to be because we did something wrong. No, I'm dead serious.
No, no, I get it. Like real life, though. That was
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
laughing because that's so much like real life.
Right. It is true. It is very true that a digital mixer is basically a computer. So just like a laptop is more delicate than, I don't know, something physical, a digital mixer is more delicate. It will have more problems, but I have not yet seen a single digital mixer with that kind of technical problem where something went wrong because it's digital. It is more delicate. You have to keep, the temperature, the moisture, stuff like that. Analog mixers are more robust. Um, I mean, sometimes it rains. What are you going to do? They're not waterproof, but they are more robust. Digital mixers are less robust, but I have not yet seen that kind of problem. The kind of problems you do see a lot are digital mixers are more spoiled and more complicated, and so it's easier to mess up with a digital mixer than it is with an analog mixer. And when you have a problem with a digital mixer, finding that problem is much harder because it's just more complicated. And that brings us to the biggest disadvantage of a digital mixer. They're unique. We were saying that analog mixers for the most part are more or less the same. Digital mixers for the most part are so unique that even a professional sound engineer who has never used a Behringer will need to do some homework before coming to a venue that has a Behringer, even though they've been working with Allen and Heath or Soundcraft for 20 years, but they've never seen a Behringer before. They won't know how to use it. It will take them a little while to learn. And so, two things. One, if you're looking for simple, it's probably a good idea to keep it analog. Two, yes, you can talk to someone who will show you how to use one digital mixer. You learn that one and then you stick to that one. Three, if you're going to buy a digital mixer for whatever you are doing, your venue, your event, or whatever it is, you're going to have more trouble using it than an analog mixer. You're going to need more help. There's more chances that you're going to need a professional. You're going to be more reliant on a professional because it's more complicated. So that's the biggest disadvantage. It's not as simple. It's just more possibilities, and you can achieve the same things with an analog. It's just, you'll have to run across the room, see what it sounds like, come back. There
Can
are
you,
more advantages to a digital mixer that I can talk about if we want to, more advantages. But I think the nutshell is clear.
can you recommend a small, efficient analog?
Analog. Um, Famous companies that make analog mixers. Mackie makes good analog mixers. Yamaha is famous for its features, but I would say, let's say Mackie.
Uh-huh.
Mackie is a good small analog. Oh, Behringer, by the way. Behringer makes good, small, simple analog mixers. They're the cheapest ones. They're the simplest ones. They have the least features. They'll probably have less monitors, so on and so forth. But you can look, there's so many options. You can basically decide how many monitors you have and buy your mixer according to that. One last thing about the price of digital mixers. My digital mixer doesn't have its own screen. It doesn't even have its own knobs. It's just a bunch of connections. It looks like this, as if someone pulled this out, and all you see is a bunch of connections. And I use it with my iPad. That makes it cheaper without really, if you ask me, losing anything, because I'm going to be running around with this anyway. So what do I care if it doesn't have knobs on it? I'm not going to be standing next to the mixer anyway. So that will lower the price way down if you find one of those digital mixers that is iPad controlled only, without its own knobs and without its own. And they're pretty cheap these days.